It's kind of funny when somebody's like, we had a Marine, we had parachutes, and now we're in a train yard and you can't see the slides. Happy birthday. I'm really glad to be here and very honored that y'all are taking time out of your day to hang out and to connect. Did anybody have to take did anyone besides from my brother, Steve, who's in the building, have to take a lot of French in elementary school? Okay, Steve and Allison. All right, the two people I know besides for Chuck had to take a lot of French. I grew up in Western Massachusetts, and French was still a very big deal. You didn't have a choice. You took French every single year, and you went, I think, 3 times a week for 30 minutes. And I learned, I don't know how to say nothing in French, but I learned nunca. I think that's how you say it in Latin. I learned nothing. All we learned was nouns. Jambon is how you say ham. L'hôpital is hospital. Bibliothèque is the library. And I was bored out of my mind taking these French classes, but I loved the spin doctors. Did anybody have the spin doctors in elementary school? Wow, less people than French. Do you say is sad triste in French? La triste. I loved the spin doctors, and the spin doctors had a song that could annoy adults called What Time Is It? Does anybody remember this song? Okay, excellent. More people remember. You didn't raise your hand about the spin doctors thing, so okay. I love that song, and that song was very annoying, and I asked my French teacher, how do you say what time is it in French? I heard somebody say it, quelle heure est-il? Quelle heure est-il? Thank you. And I said, and how do you say 4:30? And she said, 4:30. And it's just the same amount of syllables. It just works. So I took this French class that was learning nouns and got the entire French class for 20 minutes to just scream, quelle heure est-il? 4:30. And I was so proud, and I was leading the class, and I feel like I was taking off my shirt and ringing around and just getting the entire class excited about it. And I thought that I was doing a great job because we were all speaking French, and we never spoke French. So I thought that the teacher would be super happy. I didn't notice that she was absolutely red in the face and was trying to get me to stop, and I was high on this adrenaline of getting everyone to not stop. And we got done with the class, and I realized that me and her were at very different points because she said, Sean, you need to stay after class. I need to speak to you. And I sort of thought it was going to be for a gold star. L'Etoile. It was not. How do you say gold? Door? It was not for a door l'Etoile. It was to get in trouble. But she did say, Sean, you see, I was in 4th grade. Oh, I got a slide. This is probably 1st grade. But she said, Sean, you have a special power. You can get people to do what you want. And you absolutely wasted that power today. You did something with it that could get you in trouble, and you could do something with it that could actually be your career. And although I was young, I did kind of feel like that was a line in the sand moment for me, and I knew what I would do, which was join the Spin Doctors. And clearly I had a particular gift with this thing. It honestly did make me think, I don't want to waste this power. I don't want to waste this ability to get people excited about something. And that has really shaped a lot of what I've done in my life, because a lot of what I've done in my life is get people excited about something. Whether it's trivia, or whether it's the band High Respects I started in high school, or whether it's being on the radio and trying to get people excited about the music we're playing or the events we're doing. Do you guys remember Kinko's Flyers? Anybody remember Kinko's Flyers? Anybody ever pick the Canary Yellow for their band, or the Astro Blue? Remember this? A18, I believe, was the Canary Yellow. I loved going to Kinko's, and I loved getting flyers and passing them out to people. This is for a High Respect show at the Triple Rock, but this comes from an 11 by 17 with 4 of them. You cut them up, and the 11 by 17 4-ups are a little big, they're a little hard in the pocket, but I still have flyers. I have High Respect flyers coming up. You keep those in the back of your pocket, and they're more valuable than a million things you see on Facebook, and this was long before Facebook. This was an ability to communicate about what was happening with your band. And this one comes from my post-high school years, but I was lucky enough to go to a high school in St. Paul called St. Paul Central that had a strong music culture, but also a strong promotions culture. At the music area that I was in, people put their posters up on the wall, they put their flyers up on the wall. You looked at what people were doing, you kept track of what they were doing musically, and what track they were doing business-wise, which was, and still is, a bit of a coup, to use some more French, in the world of music, because a lot of music education doesn't embrace anything related to practical success, performance, remuneration, etc. But this program did, and I remember looking at those flyers and wanting to be a part of it and realizing that there was a two-pronged thing, which is if your band was bad and you had great flyers, people weren't going to come a second time, right? You can fool somebody once, but if the band's not good, especially in high school, the word's going to spread. But if your band was great, but you never had flyers, you didn't have them in time, or you didn't get them out, the word wasn't going to spread because there weren't going to be people there to spread the word. And I realized that both of those parts were important, to believe in what you were putting on stage, but to also be an ambassador for what you were doing before you got on stage. And I'm very thankful to have a teacher who took that really seriously, because I think a lot of people have the philosophy of, I'll be magnificent in my bedroom and someone will come find me. And that's not how it has ever worked for me, and it's not really how it's worked for anyone I've dealt with in the professional world. I took a lot of pride in getting flyers up there on the wall. It was a mark of success for the band, and it was also a good place to advertise. And I put one flyer up that Red, my teacher, said, "This is the best flyer anybody's put up in our program." And he said that was because it was memorable, and it was so memorable that somebody might want it even if they didn't want to come to the show. I don't have the actual flyer, but the artwork, which my brother is largely responsible for, is right here. This is me, buried in sand with fake bosoms. You did this. It was a moment of courage to put some kind of image like this of yourself up on a flyer and pass it to people in high school, because there's a lot of obvious vulnerability to it. There's also, it was a different time, and it was just to present yourself as with nipple eyeballs and large breasts was rare. I think exceedingly rare, but it was humorous, and it fit what was going on with the band. This was a humorous rock group called Hail Bop. The Comet, and how do you say comet in French? Le Comet. And this worked. The reason this worked to me was because people cared about what we were doing, and the image captured it. And I think a lot of folks deny that they have a responsibility to be an ambassador for their own work. And I was lucky to not ever, I was disavowed of that image very early on. I knew I would have to be an ambassador for my own work. Okay, in the 2010s, I still spent a lot of time at FedEx. A lot of people in bands didn't necessarily spend as much time in FedEx because you had Facebook ads, you had radio that was being more supportive of local musicians. But I started a trivia company with Chuck Tierhark, who's also here. Hi, Chuck. No French in elementary school for you? Le Triste. What did you, German? German in kindergarten. Okay, North Dakota. So here's the situation. Before the pandemic, Trivia Mafia was spending, I think, about $900 a month on copies. And I was going in all the time to pick up copies for private parties, and we were printing large amounts for our business. And I had a moment, I'm playing in Higher Specs, I'm on the radio at the time, I'm working at the Current, and I walked into the Roseville Kinko's. And I was like, I'm Sean McPherson, I gotta pick up some copies. And this dude looked at me and was like, "You're Sean McPherson?" Normal. Shit happens every day. No problem. But because I had these different career paths, you kind of have to do this arrogant thing of like, how do you know me? Like, is it the successful hip hop band, the trivia company, the radio? Who knows? And I was like, oh, like, I was like, how do you know about me? And he just looked at me. He's like, you make so many copies. And it actually, it gave me probably more pride than if the person had dug it about the radio or if they had dug it about something else. It gave me this sense of like, that's the unifying thing, is that I've done career paths that involve making a lot of copies. It's a punchline, but there's a reality to it. I've done career paths where spreading the word is absolutely essential to the rest of the work. It is maybe not equally important, but it is equally mandatory to survive. Now, I think of the unifying thing as Kinko's and entertainment. There's more to trivia than entertainment, there's more to music than entertainment, there's more to radio than entertainment, but they all share that element of entertainment. And ultimately, especially as a bass player, they kind of involve setting the table and sometimes joining the party. A lot of times I'm connecting with somebody else's songs and trying to add something useful to it, but something that ultimately when I'm done might seem like the first thing that was there, which is kind of interesting. So somebody goes, I got these chords and I'm gonna play with something even more fundamental than what you're playing. Additionally, a lot of times in High Respects, which is a hip hop band, it's one of those situations where I am setting the table, but I'm doing the first thing, but hopefully by the end of it, I might be doing the least noticeable thing. So this involves a lot of willingness to respond to what is already there or what's going to be in there in the future in a creative way. I haven't done a lot of monastic creation where I've gone from zero to complete without other input, without other collaboration. I've often been somebody who's been joining up something that was already creative or adding or setting something up that I will invite other people to. And to me, that relates to the things I've even chosen to do music-wise, what types of bands I've played in. That relates to the trivia adventure that we've been on, Chuck and I have been on for 13, 14 years now. It's an idea of not just doing exactly what you want to do because it brings you a lot of joy, but more thinking about 10 to 15 things that you imagine would bring you a fair amount of joy, and then seeing what the community might actually be interested in, want, and that then you could have that good situation. And I think a lot pretty pragmatically about this, about sort of like waiting in the shortest lines to get to creativity. The line to make a full-time living as an alternative hip-hop group was really long. There was a lot of people waiting in that line who said, I'll go on tour for almost no money and we're gonna see if we can build this thing up. And a lot of the people weren't 6-piece bands, weren't 5-piece bands. So suddenly if you're making, you know, $100,000 a year and there's 2 of you, that's pretty damn good. If you're making $100,000 a year and there's 6 of you, that's not good at all. So that felt like a very long line towards success. The line was really short to be a trivia company when Chuck and I started in 2007 here. We believed in what we did, we knew trivia was special, but there was nobody connecting, let alone the metro area, but certainly not the regional area, with high quality trivia, with something that you could somewhat build to scale. And so suddenly I felt like, oh, there's a lot less friction here, and there's a lot more opportunity, a shorter line to get to something where I feel like we could be really creative. In the same way, I started playing bass for Dessa around 2009, and it was an opportunity where I said, oh, it was really hard to start from ground zero, but you already got your gears rolling. I can join up, add to that, and respond to your creativity, and it's a shorter line. And some of the skills I brought were more in demand than what I could bring as a band leader. So I joined that. When I wrote these notes, I said that I would say, don't take the energy of the universe for granted, in the sense that the things that made it possible to start a trivia company easily in 2007 are not there now, because we're there. And we'll knock you out, Babs. Don't start. We got this town. So you can't go, it'll always be there. You can't assume that the opportunities to get on the road, you can't assume that that enthusiasm for live band hip hop or for bar trivia or for a particular brand or radio are just a consistent. People always say like college will always be there. People do not go, live hip hop will always be there. You know, people don't go, oh, you know, nighttime trivia entertainment will always be there. You have to find out when there's that pocket and try to get in. This is The negatives from July of 2000, the first time Higher Specs got a write-up in the city pages from Daniel Corrigan, taken in the parking lot of Bon Appetit. Has anybody here ever helped a friend drill something into a wall or put a... Kayla has. Kayla? Okay, Kayla and Heather have helped. Did you get help or did you give help? You helped each other, okay. I've never done that. No one has ever gone, I'm working on, I need help with my house. Sean, can you come help? I've been shown how to drill something into a wall 15 times. Time number 16 will be this Sunday with my neighbor Andy. I don't get it, but I got shown how to do a press release. I got shown how to do half of a press release in the year 2000 by a woman named Kim Randall, and I ran with that shit and became really good at writing press releases for myself and for artists who I truly believed in. Not press releases for hire, but press releases for people who I wanted to make sure that they could also shine. And it's the only time I felt like the person who helps you replace a tire, who helps you drill a hole, where people just go, I need to figure out how to get the word out about this. I go, I got you. I can help you with this. In the same way that maybe you felt like, oh, this wasn't that hard. I never feel that way about drilling. Always feel that way about press releases. And it was a cool culture to send out press releases in the early 2000s. There's a huge box in front of City Pages that was open 24 hours a day that you could slide your stuff into. There's a weird room in the Star Tribune that was also open 24 hours a day. And you had to double park in front of Rarig Center to drop it off at Radio K. And it was an experience, and I loved doing it. I drove around, and I learned how to do it, and I learned how to help other people do it. And for a short time, it was a true advantage. And the reason it was a true advantage is because I was ahead of some of my peers on that side of things. I wasn't particularly far ahead on booking shows. I wasn't particularly far ahead on recording music. But on getting press, Higher Specs was ahead of the curve. Some of that had to do with me learning how to do press releases. And I think some of that absolutely had to do with me not only being white, but also maybe looking more like a music writer than a musician. Like giving off a vibe of like, oh, okay, you as a writer, you shouldn't just want to write about people like you. But I think that does often happen. And I think that played to Higher Specs' advantage. I was an ambassador for a group, but they were like, I can pick up the phone and talk to Sean. And as I'm trying to provide advice, I think it's only fair to go, there's some advantages that came looking like me, walking in to City Pages into that box and putting that particular press release in. Okay, we'll keep this one up. It does involve a lot of confidence to send out a press release. It does involve a lot of confidence to pass out a flyer because you have to believe that your shit is good. So what if you go, I don't know if my shit is good. That's the first step in ultimately believing that your stuff is excellent, right? And I did not come out thinking that I was great. I would listen to great records and I would listen to what we made and I would think it was garbage. And I wouldn't beat myself up about it, but I go, this doesn't measure up. And I would trust myself when I felt like it did. I had a sober assessment when it was bad. And then when I started going, this actually sounds comparable. This sounds like it's in the same galaxy. I think a lot of people second guess that stuff. Maybe it's just fatigue. Maybe I'm just tired of thinking I suck. But I was just like, no, I think I've gotten better. I think what we're doing has gotten better, and I'm proud of it. Another key for me to build up the confidence to be that ambassador was to be around great people. All these gentlemen are great. Felix is, I guess Felix and Josh are the two people who are still in the band. But I knew Felix was a great rapper. We were in high school together, and I saw him next to very bad rappers, and I could tell that he was significantly better. And I could see that when he was around a great rapper, he was comparable. Our drummer now, who's been our drummer for 20 years, Peter Leggett, is somebody who's got immense quality control. He won't let something get out the door with bad drums on it. He won't really let something get out the door with bad bass on it. And so you go, if he'll keep me around, then I have some quality control because I got it right there. I didn't know Chuck would be here, but Chuck, you have incredible quality control. You won't let bad shit get out the door. So I know that if it's got both our names on it, it can't be bad. And that's incredibly powerful. And I thank you for that because that helps me be able to sell it and be able to be an ambassador for it. I know I'm not representing something that sucks. When I give you a flyer, when I share something, when I send out a press release, I do fundamentally believe that I'm doing you a favor. And I think that that is a little bit of a coup, to use some more French. Reason being, when you get a flyer, you go, I hate this. Whenever I get a flyer, I go, I don't want this. And I've given out thousands of flyers, and I've gone to very few of those shows. But what I truly believe is that I'm giving you a flyer for a group that I think is one of the greatest live acts in Twin Cities history. I'm giving you a flyer for trivia, which I think is one of the greatest experiences you can have. I'm asking you to check out a radio program that I think is of the highest quality. So although I know it's an inconvenience at the person-to-person level where you go, I don't even have a pocket for this. This one was cut from an 11 by 17. I do think I'm doing you a favor, even if you don't think that. And that helps me do it with pride. That helps me do it with confidence. And I know that there's a lot of folks whose lives have been improved by coming to these things. I met my wife at a Trivia Mafia event. I know a lot of people who have met their partners at a Trivia Mafia event. I know people who met their first Minnesota drug dealer at a Trivia Mafia event or at a Higher Spec show. These are connections. This matters. And I know people who have had great nights seeing these bands, right, and seeing the bands we represent. I can't spread the word for hire. I mentioned that earlier. I know that is anybody's jobs being a press release writer for the highest bidder? Maybe it'd be a weird time to raise your hand because I'm about to shit on your whole industry. But there's things I can do for hire. I will play on a bad record for the right amount of money. But for that publicist side, for that spreading the word thing, I can only be a trusted communicator if the people on the other side trust me. I've only gone to the people from the Star Tribune, from Racket, from Radio K, from national level places, from The Current, from Jazz 88, with things I endorse wholeheartedly. And if I lost that, I'd lose a whole lot. So I can't do it for hire. I made a note here. It's also not about brute strength. I'm a music director. I get a tremendous amount of inbox bandits who just think, oh, maybe that 9th email is really going to get Sean to check out the record, and it will never. And it's the problem is you want to figure out a way to do it deftly and to join the conversation as opposed to start your own conversation, which I'll talk about in a moment. The other thing I mentioned is that you have a temporary advantage if you learn how to do press releases and other people in your community don't have that advantage. If you hoard that to yourself, you have a permanent disadvantage because your peers will go, oh, they cornered the market on something and they're being really provincial and precious about it. If you share your skills, and I don't mean work for them, but if you share how you do it and you share your methods and you share your techniques, you will have a permanent advantage, which is this thing of going, oh, Sean is generous with his time and with his skills. He is somebody I can come to for input. And then suddenly I've spent 20 years as a peer of people who will come and check it out and come back to me and ask me questions, and I can go vice versa. So whatever temporary advantages because of skills you have over your peers, you have to be generous with them or the value of them will disappear. Anybody know what a stage plot is? Go ahead, Carson. No, okay. No? Where all the instruments are. This is a semi-old high-respect stage plot. And it does serve a purpose for sound people. It does serve a purpose for monitor people. But I'm not here to talk about the details of the stage plot. In the level of music that I work at, which is generally you can't afford your own sound person, you're going in and working with the house staff. A stage plot is shorthand for I'm serious about my shit. I walk into a venue, I go, hey, I brought a couple copies of the stage plot. Would you like one? Does somebody who's doing the monitors like one? What's your name? Oh, fantastic. My name's Sean. We'll be working together tonight. I get that person's name. I text it to everyone in the band so that then like 2 hours later, the vocalist will have in her phone the name of the sound person. So she can go, Cameron, can we get some more? Carson, are you doing monitors? I'm not hearing enough. And they're not called sound people. They're now called by their name, and it's a lot more respectable. I think a lot of industries, to some extent, have a stage plot. You have something when you start maybe it's a contract, maybe it's an invoice, maybe it's a proposal, but you have something early on in that interaction where you go, I'm serious about what I do. So this is not the night to take off. This is not the night to be half there. This is the night to take it seriously. And I got a beautiful comment from a rapper in town named Mally who said, you take what you do so seriously with high respects that nobody in your sphere can't take it seriously. You walk in, you command respect, you expect respect, you give respect back, and that makes the whole function better. And that touched me a lot more than most comments I've gotten. In the radio world, this is kind of the like interview sheet. I bring somebody into Jazz 88 and I go, oh, thanks. And I'm holding a piece of paper with a couple pieces of information. I've listened to their record. I've got questions. I bring them a water when they get there. I tell them where to park. I tell them if we're going to take a photo. I tell them how long it's going to take. That is the simplest shit on earth. But if the artist knows that, they will treat your platform with respect. I tell them when it's going to be posted online, and I do it. It's simple. But look at these smiling faces. Look at that. Look at that. L.A. Buckner, smiling. Chris McBride, smiling. Because I showed up on time, because I had my stuff, because I was ready. Chuck got booked to do this event 7 years ago. When I heard about that, I was like, I'm next. July, they're calling me. I run a trivia company and a hip-hop band. You went in the wrong order. What's going on? And I was incredulous. I had to look that word up, Drew. I was incredulous. They gotta call me. I've been giving out my stage plot. I've been telling everybody I'm serious. Okay, Creative Mornings, when's that phone gonna ring? Rang 3 weeks ago. But there's nothing I could do I couldn't incredule my way onto this stage, right? I couldn't bellyache my way onto the things I thought I had commanded the respect to get. And frankly, it's still your choice, and it's your committee's choice, and it's the whole. There was no point in going, well, basically you go, you just keep on doing your stage plot, you keep on doing your interviews, you keep on making good work, and you know that it's out of your hands on a per experience basis. I have seen you, I've hung out with you. If the phone never rang for this gig, you'd be still good in my book 100% of the time. 100% of the time. You gotta get that incredulity out of you. It's not good. I had a lot more of it 7 years ago. Whatever. You gotta just do your good work and you hope that somebody will care. You gotta let yourself suck. You got to, when I was doing music, I was really bad about not taking, I curated my life to avoid the things I sucked at. I made sure that I could only go to places where I shined. And I thought, oh, we're successful, we're touring. We open for Cake. I don't have to practice my scales. We open for Cake. And it was wrong, and it left me with a bunch of holes. No matter how much your name rings out, no matter how successful you are, the things you know are weak links are weak links. There isn't an amount of success that will cover that up. And in radio, which I've been doing for about 10 years, I cut a different path. I said, okay, whatever I suck at, no matter how cool my business card is, I'm gonna get good at. I sort of snuck backdoor through trivia into being mic number 2 on The Current with Jill Riley, and that might be a lot of people's 9th job in radio, and it was my first job in radio. I sucked at everything that you would have learned along the way. And I saw Jill have so much skill, need so much help from whoever was going to be in that chair, and I could not do any of it. You do news on the 20s on The Current, that's when you hear the news breaks. And that was the one job they felt like they could give me, because you didn't have to start the break, you didn't have to end the break, and you could write it all out in advance. And I would work so hard on these news breaks, and they were so bad. I would put the losing score first, which you never do, like the Wild lost 3-4. That's not how you do it. I would forget to say if it was an away game. I would also trail off at the end of every news story that was stressful. So I'd be like, riots in South Minneapolis, we'll see how that goes. And it's like, that's not how news works. And worse still, I would be so nervous about it that at 6:12 in the morning, Jill would go, "Hey, Sean, how you doing?" on the microphone. I would go, "Doing great. We're thinking about immigration and things are happening and the federal things." I would run through the entire news break 8 minutes early, and she would just go, finish up, and she'd go, "Here's Weezer," and then the song would play, and she'd go, "Remember, we do the news at 6:20. I go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And she'd go, "It's not a big deal. There's 180,000 people who think they're late for work, but it's not a big deal." and it was amazing. When you say you want to be next to greatness, I want to be next to Chuck Terhark, I want to be next to Peter Leggett. It was amazing to be next to Jill Riley. I would actually sneak over. We printed out the same sheets with the songs on it, and she would still be like, "And that's the Flaming Lips, and they're coming to the State Theater in March." And it would be like November, and I would sneak over to her paper to see if her paper had these dates on it, because mine didn't. And she saw me, and I looked up, and she goes, "Right here." She might have looked on the web right beforehand, but by the time it was on the mic, it was hers, and that was very different. This is my last slide. This is just a flyer. I was stressed out. I thought we'd spent too long on that previous one. Too much stage plot. We don't want to give away all the sauce. They don't know what a DI is. I've taken a lot of things seriously for 20 years that a lot of people do for like a year, right? Like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna start a hip hop band." I was like, "Oh, what are you really gonna do?" Or, "Oh, I think I'm gonna start a trivia company." Sometimes people will be like, "Yeah, it's been fun running trivia for you, but I'm gonna go work." And I feel like Chuck and I'd be like, "We are working. We're doing a trivia company." And there's a huge value in taking yourself seriously in places where most people don't take it seriously. There's a career to be made. There's some amount of money to be made. And when you're in these environments that people fucking love music. People love radio. People love trivia. But it's just a thing that a lot of folks do on their way to a quote-unquote real job. But if you take it really seriously, whatever you do, it can be a career. There's people with dumber careers than mine who make more money than me because they, in some ways, took it more seriously. And taking it seriously, I've been very funny today. A lot of people have laughed today. It's not about being serious. It's just about being serious with yours and being serious with how you do it and respecting yourself enough to spread the word. And if you're making stuff that you don't want to spread the word about, that's worth thinking about. Why do the things I make not compel me to want to share them? And the second layer to that is if you do share them with your immediate circle and they share them with no one, what's wrong with your stuff, right? And that has been one of the first canaries in the coal mine, where you tell 10 friends about something and you see one of those 10 friends' spouse and they go, "Oh, he didn't tell me about that. She didn't tell me about that." And you go, "Something's wrong about this one. This is one that doesn't have shareability." And that's an important thing to analyze. But if you stay sober about that and you try to improve yourself and share your work with no prefaces, share your work with no asterisks, just with pride, then you're on a good path.
Thanks, Sean.